Good afternoon, and thank you for everyone who braved the snow to come here, or come downstairs as the case may be. Contemporary Jewish thinkers seem to reflect a lot on being authentically Jewish. You might say authentic Judaism is the catchphrase of the day. A simple Google search with the word Jew and authentic in the search box will bring you thousands of hits from every kind of site imaginable. Liberal, traditional, new age, humanistic, everything. Everyone seems to be claiming that they have authentic Judaism. And it's precisely because everyone seems to be using this phrase that I'm not entirely sure what it means. In fact, I suspect that it may mean different things to different people. And after 10 years of studying here at the seminary, it's 9.5 depending on how you're counting, I'm going to throw my own hat in this ring. I'm going to share my own thoughts on what I think authentic Judaism might be. And I'm going to do so through the lens of Parshat Mishpatim. I'm going to look at one pasuk, and I'm going to look at 3 different perspectives on that pasuk. Shemot 22:24 reads, Im kesef talveh et ami, et ha'ani imach, lo tiyeh lo kenoseh, lo tesimun alav neshech. If you lend money to my people, to the poor among you, do not act toward them as a creditor, exact no interest from them. According to the plain meaning of this verse, no Jew is allowed to lend money to another Jew on interest. So, this one verse gave birth to a complex legal tradition that struggled mightily to create an ethical standard for business transactions. For 3,000 years, we have struggled to apply its directives to contemporary economic questions. For instance, in 1988, a conservative synagogue wanted to issue bonds on interest as a fundraising attempt. It would seem clearly that this is outside the bounds of the law, but to really understand how bad it is, we need to look at Rambam, who speaks quite lengthily on the subject, so I'll give you a brief paraphrase. Rambam tells us in the Mishnah Torah that not only is a Jew forbidden to lend money on interest, a Jew is forbidden to borrow money on interest, a Jew is forbidden to be the scribe who writes the document of the loan on interest, and the witnesses who attest to the loan occurring also violating the biblical prohibition. All of these people are transgressing the commandment not to lend to a Jew with interest. If we apply the Rambam's interpretation to our original question, can the synagogue issue bonds on interest? It would seem the clear answer is no. But I probably wouldn't be speaking if that's where it ended. Fast forward 1,000 years to the Committee for Jewish Law and Standards, and they want to say yes. Rabbi Bergman, the author of the Tshuva on the point, argues to use a controversial exemption to this lending. It basically follows the logic that instead of lending money on interest, the lender actually becomes a silent partner in the process. And in fact, this paper is voted 11-1 in favor of allowing this to exist. And the shul that asked the question was able to issue these bonds. Here, we see the long distance this one verse has traveled, from Sefer Shemot to Mishnah Torah to the Committee for Jewish Law and Standards, with many stops in between. Here we see from the perspective of halakha, the rabbinic attempt to balance the written word with the lived reality. Here we become part of the rabbinic endeavor to make Judaism a dynamic religion rooted in tradition. This same verse has given birth to a compassionate and just notion of the ethics of lending, but it has also been a source of disappointment through the eyes of modern feminist criticism. Dr. Tamara Cohen-Eskenazi and Rabbi Andrea Weiss, sorry, Andrea. The editors of the Women's Torah Commentary are very careful to note this Torah's usage of gendered pronouns. In fact, in many ways, this parsha is full of laws. There's a long list of many laws, and through the careful use of grammar, they can discern which laws apply to both men and women and which laws apply just to men. And yet for this verse, they're actually left ambiguous. It's a little unclear still. But regardless of the theoretical possibility of including women in this protection, women were not lent to. Jewish law was at best very uncomfortable with the idea of a woman who could support herself financially, and at worst actively sought to create an economy in which women could not support herself without men. In this way, this law stands as a reminder of the depths to which our tradition erred regarding women's role in society. Here, the Bible and subsequent rabbinic tradition had the opportunity to change the patriarchy of the day. In a case in which the law was necessary to protect those in need, the Torah could have enacted one that provided women the same protection. Yet it failed to do so. Yes, sociologically speaking, this would have been a radical innovation for the day. But should we demand any less from the Torah? In Rachel Adler's words, it is always possible to have an insight or discovery that momentarily breaks through the boundaries of the world we are inhabiting and points towards somewhere else. Even if we believe this is what Torah does, we must have the courage to acknowledge when it falls short. Here, the perspective of gender reminds us just how far we have to go and just how diligent we have to be in order to ensure that Judaism is always on the march towards equality of opportunity, even if that means we must break through the boundaries of the world as we know it. Third, I'd like to look at this passage from the perspective of personal meaning. Why does this law exist? And again, I turn to Rambam. In his Sefer Mitzvot, he writes, "We are commanded to lend to the poor man to alleviate his suffering. And this duty is prior to that of giving charity, since the suffering of the one who is reduced to the humiliation of open begging is not to be compared with the suffering of the one who is too proud to do so, but waits for a helping hand." Rambam directs our attention to the beginning of our pasuk. Rambam understands this verse as commanding us to lend money to those who need it. In fact, this commandment is more important than simply giving charity. Because, as he points out, it's considerably harder to accept a handout than it is to accept a loan. Today, we can still see the amazing power an individual feels in being given a loan. Many organizations today have found microloans to be a powerful tool in fighting poverty. These are small loans at little or to no interest directed to people who might be left out of the traditional lending system. For example, Jewish Funds for Justice has a program called Tzedek, which has been pairing Jewish philanthropists with low to moderate income neighborhoods for almost 10 years. The success of these microloans has been staggering. In Los Angeles, Tzedek's long-time investment in clearinghouse community development financial institutions has helped develop and rehabilitate more than 11,000 housing and commercial units, put 1.9 million families on the road to home ownership, create 175 block clubs, and employ 200 neighborhood youth. This modern means for fighting poverty has its roots all the way back in our Parsha, which understood that economic sustainability for all is a core value for a just society.